First pollution that we're going to look at is particulate matter. And I've got some pictures here representing where and what particulate matter is, but what do you think it is? Particulate matter consists of thousands of different solid and liquid particles that are suspended in the atmosphere. Ones that you can think of, like the solids, dust, soil, soot, pollen, asbestos is another one we'll look at, and then liquids could be like sulfuric acid droplets. Now they do stay suspended in the air. You can see here with this particulate matter, or this solid particulate matter. They stay suspended for a period of time, but usually they tend to settle out of the atmosphere and eventually come back down onto the Earth's surface. But they can stay suspended for many years, depending on their size and where they're suspended. The environmental impacts of particulate matter, they reduce visibility, especially scattering sunlight. Urban areas tend to have more particulate matter than rural areas, so getting less sunlight. Human health effects, they are irritants to eyes and lungs. People with emphysema and asthma are very sensitive and cannot be outside for too long or areas with too much particulate matter. People who live and work in countries most polluted cities are 15 to 17% more likely to die prematurely than those living in U.S. cities or areas with cleaner air. And this partly is because of particulate matter. Next up, we've got nitrogen oxides. We've got some diagrams here of where their source of nitrogen oxides are, where areas that there are highest sources. And then you can see here some of the chemical equations to take nitrogen gas plus oxygen. You can get nitric oxides, and then nitric oxides plus with more oxygen, you can get nitrogen dioxide. And then if you add water into the scenario, nitrogen dioxide, you make nitric acid. And then when nitric acid rains down, what do you think that's called? Yeah, that's called acid rain. There are different types of nitrogen oxides, like you have nitrogen oxide, nitrogen dioxide, and nitrous oxide, or laughing gas. These pollutants are formed when nitrogen and oxygen combine under high temperatures, and usually that occurs during burning of fossil fuels, during combustion in engines, so with transportation. And more of it is produced when cars do incomplete combustion. I'll write that down here. Incomplete. Alright. Incomplete combustion occurs when cars are usually idling, so just sitting there. And you can see here, with nitrogen oxides interacting with VOCs, what do they produce? Yeah, remember, that's how you produce tropospheric ozone, which is another pollutant we'll talk about. Some environmental effects. They inhibit plant growth. They're involved in the production of photochemical smog and acid rain. Nitrous oxide, or the laughing gas, is a potent greenhouse gas, and if it gets in the upper atmosphere, deteriorates ozone. And nitrogen oxides cause metals to corrode and textiles to fade and deteriorate. Human health effects, once again, irritates the eyes and cause inflammation of the respiratory tract, and people with emphysema and asthma are very sensitive when there are high concentration of nitrogen oxides in the atmosphere. You'll see that there are quite a few of the different types of air pollutants that individuals with these symptoms, or symptoms, are highly sensitive to higher concentrations of these air pollutants in the atmosphere. Next up, we have sulfur oxides. Here I've got sulfur dioxide and sulfur trioxide, or also sulfate if it is has a negative charge. Sulfur oxides come mainly from, from burning coal, but you can also get it with residual fuel, or fuel at the bottom of the barrel, which is used for ships. Burning that petrol or diesel. Sulfur oxide also is in the production of acid rain. And sulfur can be a natural pollutant that comes from volcanoes. Sulfur oxides are pollutants and gases that are produced by chemical interaction between sulfur and oxygen, mainly from combustion of coal. You have your two different forms here. It's a colorless, non-flammable gas with a strong, irritating odor. It smells like rotten eggs. Some of you are going to experience that when you do your test with sulfur dioxide on your mini environments. Sulfur dioxide is the major oxide emitted as a primary pollutant. Some environmental effects, they produce acid rain, corrode metals, damage stone, and other different types of materials. It can damage plant growth and irritate the respiratory tracts of other animals. Human health effect, once again, irritates eyes and causes inflammation in the lung, and people with emphysema and asthma are very sensitive when it's in high concentrations. Now we're on carbon oxides. One that we've talked about quite often so far, CO2 or carbon dioxide, and then you have carbon monoxide. I'm sure you've heard of carbon monoxide before. Usually where? Usually with burning oil on a generator or a lawnmower or having your car in a garage and it's running, you can build up carbon monoxide. And this usually comes from incomplete combustion or cars just sitting there and idling. And it's incomplete because it's not getting enough oxygen. If it doesn't get enough oxygen, you tend to get incomplete combustion. And creating that carbon monoxide, that is a colorless, odorless gas that can be lethal. Now if we look back at the carbon cycle, there are some carbon dioxide is a very important molecule, because who needs it? Yeah, plants need it. They need it for photosynthesis. So carbon is essential to be in the atmosphere. But humans have been taking it and burning it from where it was. We had to dig out fossil fuels and putting large quantities of carbon dioxide back in the atmosphere that was trapped in the earth. And it is a potent, both of them are potent greenhouse gases. So both of them are colorless and odorless, tasteless gas that comes, this one from incomplete combustion, and then you have carbon dioxide, which comes from many different sources like burning fossil fuels, cellular respiration, which is us using glucose and producing CO2, or you breathing out CO2, and then burning like organic compounds like trees, and also volcano eruptions are huge sources. And both, here we go, are greenhouse gases. Some environmental effects. Carbon monoxide is poisonous and reduces the blood's ability to transport oxygen. So basically just making it so you can't get oxygen to your brain and you slowly fall asleep and die. Carbon dioxide builds up in the atmosphere associated with global warming. Human health effect. Medium concentrations of CO2 cause headaches. Higher concentrations can cause death. Individuals tend to slow down as concentrations increase, and then people at greatest risk of carbon monoxide include pregnant women, infants, and those with heart or respiratory diseases.